What's up, guys? Welcome to G Whiskey. I'm Jeff. This is a channel where I offer my thoughts and opinions on a specific whiskey, and if you stick around at the end, I'll be giving it a score as well. If that sounds interesting, hit subscribe down below, and with that out of the way, let's jump into our review. Today we're looking at the Glenallachie 10 Batch 11. Stick around. Alright, so just a couple days ago, I put out a review of the Aberlour Abana. I quite liked it, and I thought, you know what would be a fun follow-up to the Abana? This one. This one, of course, being Glenallachie 10, and no, you're not seeing things. We have a fancy new packaging, a fancy new label for our 10-year-old, in fact, for the entire range, and don't worry, we'll get into that. But packaging aside, this is the same Glenallachie 10 that you know and love, unless you hate it. I have looked at this one twice before on the channel. I've looked at batch 9 most recently, and I think before that it was batch 4, and I did like both. I remember liking batch 9 in particular. I scored it 86, and what's interesting is I just did a review of the Aberlour Abana, and in that I said that, generally speaking, I prefer the Abana to Glenallachie 10. Now that Abana, I scored an 84. So what gives there? Am I a liar? Am I a paid shill? Am I an industry plant for big sherry to inflate the scores of certain bottles and not others? Or am I just incompetent? Now, I can't speak to the incompetence thing. There is a strong case for that, but note that I said I generally prefer the Abana. The Abana batch 80 that I just reviewed, I liked slightly less than the average batch, and the Glenallachie 10 batch 9, I liked more than the average batch. So it's fun to keep an eye on these batches. And if I'm not here to track and follow and keep tabs on all of these batches, someone else will. Doesn't help my point at all. For our maturation, we have PX sherry, we have Oloroso sherry, we have red wine casks, and we have virgin oak casks, which is the standard recipe for this stuff. So we can expect some really big, really intense flavors and a buttload of cask influence. And I think that's pretty much everything you need to know, so that's our intro done. Let's not waste any more time. Let's jump into our review. In the meantime, if you'll kindly leave a like down below, that would be greatly appreciated. For our specs, this has a hefty ABV of 59.4%. It is non-chill filtered, and our color is natural. Okay, so the new look. What do you think? I think, you know, sometimes they, like, in life, when change is the only constant, and you never know, like, life is, yeah, I don't like this. I think when I first saw it, I got excited. I was like, oh, that's a big step up. But in retrospect, I'm pretty sure I was just excited to live in a post-Flintstones Glenallachie era. But actually, the look is still shit. It says non-chill filtered, natural color, we get tasting notes, and there's not much beyond that. So it's kind of a stark contrast because that's exactly the amount of information that I want and need from the label. But the bottle is still particularly ugly. I'm sorry, I just don't like it. So it's a 1 out of 5. I'm not sure that it is a step up, more of a step sideways, a slight improvement. This look is not traditional, which is fine. It doesn't need to be, but it's not modern either. It looks like it belongs in a budget bin in a supermarket in 1976. All right, so I did add water here. You guys are not going to believe this, but on the nose, there's a lot of big sherry. There is a little bit of spiciness on the nose, but it's nothing too bad. In terms of notes, I get figs, I get dates, I get raisins, there's honey, there's treacle, there's brown sugar, I get orange rind, there's mulled wine with like the fruits, the cinnamon, there's some eucalyptus cough drops in here, and there's some berry pastries. Very nice intensity. On the palate and finish, this is heavy, it's dark, it's thick, and it's sweet. I get cherries, I get berry jam, there's red currant, there's plenty of cinnamon, there's honey glazed dates, there's nuts, so like almonds, hazelnut maybe, there's plenty of milk chocolate in here, and there's some oak. This is big, it's long, and it's intense. That's what she said. Okay, so this is pretty familiar. Like, I only finished my batch 9 that I reviewed like a year ago. I only finished that a few months back, and then maybe there was like a couple months of a gap where I didn't have a Glenallachie 10, and then I picked up this one. And don't let the new label fool you. This is not like a new direction for them in terms of flavor. It's classic Glenallachie 10. And if you like the other recent batches of Glenallachie 10, then you're going to enjoy this one. I enjoy this one. I don't think I like it quite as much as the batch 9 that I reviewed last year. I don't think it's quite that good. I think that one enjoyed a little bit more depth and complexity, but minor differences. Overall, this hits pretty much the same. It's still going to give you what you want. It's still a classic sherry bomb. It's got the Glenallachie Billy Walker touch in the sense that it's extremely cask dominated. And normally that would be something I'd complain about. So I will. Now, I used to think that Glenallachie was not a characterful whiskey. It was designed as blend filler, the stuff that was distilled prior to 2017, which this was. But that's actually not the case. Because I've had some IB releases from Glenallachie that were excellent. I've had a couple signatories that really blew me away. And they were absolutely sherry bombs. Very cask forward, cask dominated even. But I got the Glenallachie distillate in there with the sherry casks. And that's not something I really see with the OB range. And listen, I've talked before on the channel about how sherry bombs are not my go-to style, but the ones that I prefer, the ones that I like the most, are the ones that have very good cask play, and yes, obviously very active sherry casks, but also they bring in the personality from the distillate with it too. That's the kind of sherry bomb that I go for, which is probably why, at least for me, I've never really connected with the Glenallachie range. When I drink stuff like the 10 or the 12 or the 15, they're good whiskeys, they taste good, they're satisfying, but I get a lot of casks and not a lot of character. And oppositely, if you look at stuff like Aberlour Abana, you get the big sherry, but you get the Aberlour character in there with it. If you drink a Tamdhu batch strength, you're getting the sherry and the Tamdhu character in there. And that's just something that I've always found lacking in Glenallachie releases. And of course, I realize that Billy Walker and his team are dealing with distillate that they inherited from the previous owners, and it was distillate that was not intended to be sold as a fine single malt. And I think they did their best with it. But I'm looking forward to drinking the stuff that they distilled themselves because I've never really connected with this range. I think I've said that 3 times now. So you get the point, and actually still it's good cask play and I like it. And it's funny because this review sounds pretty negative. My last review of the Abana was pretty positive. Guess what? Same score. This one gets an 84. I think this is a smack dab average bottle of Glenallachie 10, and I think Glenallachie 10 is a good whiskey. And if you're a fan of Glenallachie 10 and you like the previous ones, this one will be the same level of quality and the same level of enjoyment for you. Despite the fact that the casks do all of the talking here, they do impart good flavors. If it were up to me, I might rein in the red wine casks a little bit. I don't think they add too much, and I'd rather have this just as a purely sherry matured whiskey, but that's a minor gripe. I think if you're a Glenallachie fan, which I'm not, most people like Glenallachie more than I do, and if you're a sherry bomb fan, a lot of people like sherry bombs more than I do. If that's the case, you're going to have a great time with this one. It is a well-made, delicious, intense, and satisfying whiskey. So yeah, it's still recommended. Now, before we touch on value, I do want to say a quick thank you to all my patrons and channel members. Guys, thank you so much for all the support. And if you want to help out, if you want to help keep the channel financially sustainable and independent, there are a number of ways that you can help. I have both Patreon and PayPal linked down below. Anything and everything helps, guys. And again, massive thank you to those of you who are already supporting the channel. Now let's talk value. For value, I think we're looking pretty good here. You guys know that I live in a very cheap market, so prepare to get jealous. This one is just over 60 US here, so just under 50 pounds. And for that, I think it's a great deal. It's intense, it's craft, it's cask strength, and as I said, it's a good quality, intense sherry bomb. Still, it should be noted that in my market, this is roughly the same price as the Abana, and I do prefer that one, so that would be the one I would buy first. Or I could pop on an extra $20, which is not nothing, but that can get me the Tamdhu batch strength here, and I think that's a much better whiskey than this. So there are other options that I would probably go for first, but that's just me not really connecting to this brand. As I said, it's never been a favorite of mine, and I know a lot of you out there genuinely do love this stuff. So if you can get it for a fair price, absolutely go for it. All right, that's it for me today, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, I want to hear from you. So have you tried the Glenallachie 10 Batch 11? What did you think about it? And also, what do you think of the new label? I'm sure that's going to stir up some fun conversations. Finally, down below, you can let me know what you want to see me review down the line, and I'll keep that in mind for my upcoming videos. And we'll see you next time. Bye, guys.